Today, I have the pleasure of having Kristen Andrus on the podcast. I have been following her for a long time, and I encourage you as well. She's on social media channels, YouTube and Instagram. She's a mom of 6, so we can relate on the motherhood thing. She's a philanthropist and has done so many amazing things for our community. And I wanted you to get to hear this conversation because I know by listening, you're going to find ways that you're going to be able to contribute to your community, and all of us are going to be better. So yay. Yay, I know. Thank you. Okay, so the biggest project that you've recently come across in my mind, but maybe you have another one, is the Period Project.
Yeah, actually all day today, we've been working on a student ambassador event. So a couple of years ago, I was at a middle school in Murray, which is 2 miles from my home. And I was helping with Thanksgiving meals. And a social worker, which they're just the most incredible people, right? In these middle schools and high schools and what they're having to deal with kids, needs on a daily basis, kind of under her breath said to me, this is great. We need canned goods and turkey dinners. But what I really need for my girls are pads and tampons. And it kind of was like, wait, what? Because I'd never heard of period poverty. I'd never even thought about it. But as soon as you think about food insecurity, which we know that we offer free lunch, right, at school, and we have food banks, and we see billboards about food insecurity all the time, you immediately turn and say, oh, of course there's period poverty. Because actually I was with the CEO of the food bank doing something the other day, and she pulled out 6 boxes of macaroni and cheese, which is about what we would need to feed our kids. Yes. And then 3 cans of Chef Boyardee. That's 6 things of macaroni and cheese, 3 big cans of pasta, 1 box of tampons. And she said every month, a mother has to decide if she's gonna buy this food for her family or 1 box of tampons. And you know what that mother is gonna choose every single month, because that's a lot of food for what you can buy for 1 box of tampons. And so that visual really helped me to remember that month after month, and this is something for our whole lives, right? That our kids from K through 12, like they're going through this every single month. And so I turned to the food bank and I started raising money, and last year was really cool. We sourced and donated over 3 million period products through the Utah Food Bank, which is incredible. And by the way, the year before, I said, what are you guys doing for menstrual products? And they're like, wait, we've never asked. They sent out a survey and they came back literally the next day, and with tears in her eyes, she said, Kristen, why have I never asked? She said, this is the biggest response we've ever had in the history of the Utah Food Bank for any product I've ever tried to place. And I said, you've never asked because we don't talk about it. Right, it's a silent need. Girls aren't asking, women aren't asking, because it still has a little bit of this stigma and shame attached to it for some crazy reason. So I was dealing with immediate need. And sometimes I say I'm in the business of Band-Aids, where I'm like, you need food, here's food. You need a computer, here's a computer. But I thought there's gotta be more to this. Can we go a little bit more upstream? So my girlfriend, Emily McCormick, who'd been working on the tampon tax, which is still in place in Utah, sadly, which means that we don't, and check on your state, wherever you are, we don't consider our menstrual products medically necessary.
Oh, wow.
So we tax them. Do you know what we don't tax? Viagra. We don't tax Rogaine. We don't tax Band-Aids, bandages. The list goes on and on. But we do tax tampons. Oh my God, right? It's terrible. It's like, it's beyond, but it just shows you like where we're at. Like it's a good thing for us to know, because then we can start talking about it and it becomes a thing. So that's kind of what we started to do. We came together, we went up to the speaker and the president of the Senate, and we said, this is not okay. And hundreds of thousands of girls across our state do not have access to what they need. They're leaving school. There's something called presenteeism, and we've all been there as women, right? You're sitting in class and you're there, but you're not mentally there because you're like, am I leaking? Do I need a sweatshirt? What's going on? 1 week out of every month. Like that is something that's in the way of girls. And so we said, help us put free pads and tampons in every Utah elementary school, because our girls are getting their period a lot earlier than they used to. Sadly, puberty starting early, middle school and high school. And we did it. We started a groundswell. We started a movement throughout the state. And 1 year later, they are on our bathroom walls. It's incredible.
That's absolutely amazing. No, I was in Kenya a year 2021 to climb a mountain. And I had called and I said, if there's one thing that I could bring from the US, if there's one impact that I could have while I'm on this trip, what would it be? And the lady that I was talking to said, we need period products because the girls will miss school. Yeah. And I said, okay. So I collected period products, which take up a ton of space in an airplane. Like you're saying, like, how much cargo can I bring over?
And they don't use tampons.
Right. So it's pads. Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah. And so we brought enough product over, and then with some capital that we donated there to cover for a year. Oh. But you don't even, like in Kenya, you kind of expect it, I think, just from what we've been trained. Yeah. But to have it in our backyard, it just doesn't even make sense.
I know.
It's crazy.
I mean, I'm in Holiday and I'm a very affluent high school, and they're constantly asking me to restock their pantry before we, and it's like, this is in every school. If you think that your school doesn't happen in Park City or wherever you are, it does. It absolutely does. And sometimes it's even for those girls who could run to Walgreens, but we want them to stay in school. I'll say I'm like the queen of periods. And both of my girls have started in school. They didn't have what they need. They had to go home. And so I'm like, we need to keep our girls in school. So that was a big part of this for sure.
Right. Well, I think it's amazing. And hopefully this is like a start for all the states, and we just keep bringing more awareness and solve these problems.
Yeah. And it was really neat to get these students, like I said, the student ambassador program, where we're teaching them about leadership. We're teaching them to write their legislators. It was so neat for them to kind of be in on the grassroots. Even, my daughter's getting involved in writing their legislatures. And then we're up on the Senate floor as they're having the vote to like, are we going to do this? And we looked down and the kids' postcards were all over their desks and they talked about it. And so for girls to see, like, I can use my voice. I can be a little bit bold and talk about a period. And I can ask my principal, when are these going to be on our bathroom? Like I can write a letter, I can show up, I can ask to hang the sign, like for them to be advocates for themselves. So it was about periods, but it's become so much more because girls are looking at what happened a year ago, what we've been able to do, and that they were a big part of it.
And look at what they came together.
Yes.
Right? Like somebody might have the vision or the start, but then it takes so many of us to take it to the finish line.
For sure.
And even though there's one person there doing the legislator part, it's all those people behind, right?
For sure.
And when I'm on mountains and I'm climbing, it's me at the top, but it's not me at the top, right? It's me as a representation of, look how far we've come as females. Like we belong in these environments. We're here for a reason.
And we're better together. Yes. We're stronger together and leading by example and saying this can be done. Literally, this group of women were stay-at-home moms sitting around a beat-up kitchen table. Like that is who did this. And what I didn't realize, like you just said, like it was a couple of us having this idea, but really building a village, like building this team of support and community champions and people that rallied, companies and women and moms that came together and did this. But then what you don't realize, and probably like when you're at the top of the mountain, is you get these texts from moms and girls and DMs on, Instagram, like, you realize that every single girl in Utah has this message of when they walk into their bathroom now, you are seen. We care about you. We want you in school. We're giving you organic quality product. You are worth it. Every time these girls walk into the bathroom. And then you realize then it's gone into the families, and then the moms and the families are understanding and getting notes from the principal. And you're like, this touched every single family in our state. And it was because of the thousands of women that stood up and said, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to show up to an event on my own. I'm going to do these things that are hard for me. But a bunch of stay-at-home moms are doing it. Like, I can probably do it too.
Right. Oh, I love it. It's so good. And what it triggers, like, right? It's so much of that positive energy that you want carried into everything that we do.
Yeah. Well, and Melinda Gates says empowerment is not confined to categories. And I love that. I mean, right? Mountain climb, like I don't climb mountains. My husband does. He's like, want to come? I'm like, no. But how you're empowering yourself, how I'm empowering girls or myself or my women, it then bleeds into your whole life and your daughters and your kids and your community, everyone around you. So when you empower in something like silly, like menstruation, it really it builds women and builds girls and, as advocates and using their voices. And I love that.
Yeah.
The whole self.
And it goes like, so my mom flies out to visit. She lives in Michigan. right? And we'll exit Costco because we have to buy all the stuff that we need to feed the family.
Yes.
And I'll look at the mountains and I'm like, oh, I cannot wait till I get up those. And she'll look at those same mountains and say, I have no desire to get anywhere closer than having them be a beautiful picture, right?
Right.
But our stories and the pursuits that we chase and the things that light us up, because we found that light in ourselves, it gives permission for others to find that light in them.
Totally.
And it just makes everything better.
Yes.
I mean, across the board. It's awesome.
Yes.
It's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. When I give talks about mountaineering and business and things, and motherhood,
Yeah.
it's all related. It's all the same thing. It's just, this is the arena that it plays out in.
Yeah.
So here you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
love that.
Okay, so another thing that you're notorious for and what you share on Instagram, which I think is huge, is traveling and then being able to set up like opportunities to give back to where you are.
Yes.
So like give us the nuts and bolts on how this happens.
Yeah. I'm trying to even remember how it first happened. It'd be fun to kind of remember the first time we did it. But I think what happens is we go to Mexico or Hawaii or Costa Rica or wherever in the world. And we do, my and in life is so strong. We stay in fancy hotels and we like to go serve. And so it was kind of like when you go and stay in these really nice, lavish places, I'm like, this is not Costa Rica. Yes. This is not what, Cabo is really like. And so and we always were giving back at home. And so I thought, for the 7 days we're here or 4 days or whatever it is, we're going to go spend one day that we're going to actually see what it's really like here. And I think probably it started where my husband and I have gone all over the world, and this is probably what spurred it now that I think about it, our favorite moments are when we're with the taxi driver and we're like, take us to your house. Like, we want to meet your family. Take us to where you live. And we've done that in India and everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere around the world. And so maybe that's when we kind of, with our kids, we're like, we want to see where our taxi driver lives. And that's where we go and serve. And so, sometimes we're set up like in Cabo, there's this amazing woman named Donna who works for Feeding Los Cabos Kids. And she shows up in her white van and picks you up. And what you realize is you go once a year and she's doing that every single day and feeding thousands of kids in these 8 kitchens across Los Cabos and San Jose del Cabo. And in our heads, Cabo is, beaches lined with hotels and guacamole. And it's like, that's actually not Cabo. And so we know that now, right? We know that when we go, we're going to go and we're going to serve these kids. And what do they like? We'll bring them balls and, and so we go and do the grocery shopping. I want to go into a local grocery store. And what is that like? And really get my kids, I always talk about like getting our hands dirty and our hearts broken. And so that's local, which is really important to me, but also when we go away. And so I want it to be uncomfortable. When my kids are hot and sweaty and hungry and, uncomfortable, I'm like, great. Yeah. Perfect. Like these kids, this is their life. And the coming back and doing it over and over is really neat because you're like, these kids are still here. Oh my gosh, this isn't like go back to your air-conditioned car and drive away and it goes away. It doesn't go away. And so sometimes it's Googling, before we go somewhere, Turks and Caicos or the Dominican Republic. I remember finding a school that needed some help. Sometimes I haven't found anything before and I've asked like one of the cleaners, where do you live? Do you need something in your neighborhood? And yes, the mothers don't have anything like chocolates. Aww. And, so we got loofahs and body wash and chocolates, like really extra, where I'm like, don't you need like rice and beans? And she's like, yeah, but what we really never get is like something just for us. Yeah. And so being directed, I think sometimes we serve in the way we think that we should be giving back. And it's like, I'm not going to bring them, and I did. I brought them rice and beans too, because I'm like, I also want you to have, and it was like, actually, this isn't the kind of rice we eat. I'm like, see, I should have listened to her. But we also did these extra things, because she's like, no, that's what the moms want. And so I think being curious, like wherever you go, spending some time ahead of time, you could even get on your flight and start Googling. Sometimes it's planned out ahead of time if I know it's going to be a little bit more of a complicated thing. And I know you were saying that you've taken like pads to Kenya, which is awesome. I will say, because we have such a large family, I generally will buy, now Kenya's different, but if it's Mexico or Hawaii or something, I'll buy the stuff when I get there, because we already have so much luggage that gets tricky. But sometimes it's just, sometimes it's basic and sometimes it's all day and sometimes it's great. I share a lot where I remember the kids were fighting and it was hot and we were on some island and I was like, why are we doing this? And we're like, and it's always a white van for some reason. Like it's always a white van that comes and pulls into the hotel and everyone's getting in, grumbling and fighting. And I sat down and I closed the door and we start driving to the school. And I was like, you know what? We won. Yeah. Like we're in the van. Like winning is just getting in that van because this is what we do. It's not an activity, but it's who we are. It's part of our family culture. And it doesn't even matter what happens today.
It doesn't. So I'll share a story on our side. Yeah. I took the kids to Puerto Escondido, Mexico. Yeah. Okay. They had heard this is the Mexican pipeline for surfing. And it is definitely not Cabo, right? Puerto Escondido is a little more backdated than what Cabo is. Yeah. But we were there for 3 weeks and we hired the same surf instructors every day for 3 weeks. And I said, listen, I don't care if you're in the water or out of the water for these 2 hours, you have a child, you're going to have fun, you're going to communicate, you're going to do whatever. So, it was fantastic. When it was getting time to leave, I said, we would like to have you over at the house that we rented for dinner, just to say thank you. And they were all excited. And then 2 of the surf instructors came to me and said, we would love to make dinner if you would let us. We used to make pizzas for a living. And now we've graduated to being a surf instructor. And so would you do? Yes, I'm happy to do that. Can I pick you up to get the groceries? Because I do not cook, so I do not know what to buy. And he said, sure. So they gave us the address. So I took my 3 oldest. We drove to where they gave us the address and there was no house. And my kids are like, where do they live? I'm like, I'm pretty sure they live in the hammocks that are in these trees. And so then the guys showed up and my boys are like, do you live in those hammocks? And they're like, yeah, we came from Guatemala. We were juggling machetes at stop signs to make income. And we got into Mexico finally to be surf instructors. And so this is our home. Oh. And I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, so we go to the store, we buy all the things to make pizzas, we come back to the house and the conversations that happened that night, right? Like no one's complaining their iPad's not charged. No one's mad that someone took somebody else's sandals, right? Like it's just a different thing. And when we talk about that trip now, that's what they remember. Exactly. Like that's 100%. The thing they remember. Yep. Right? Yep.
Yeah, we saw a 14-year-old with a little toddler tugging at her, pants. Our last time in Mexico, pregnant, standing there at the orphanage as we walked out. And I hugged her and we still talk about her.
Like you want to bring them home.
I'm like, she's my daughter's age. Yes. And it's like, that is real life. And that was like a slap in the face to me and my kids. It was hard and it was really, really sad, but it was like, we still think about her and love her. And, so it's meaningful conversations that continue to happen and that core memories
of just, wow, life can be different than our iPad not being charged and life still going on. Oh my
gosh. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So did you always think that you'd be in philanthropy? Like think back to when you were younger.
Yeah, no, I remember in college, doing like a mentorship, was it through the Boys and Girls Club, I think, or something like that. And I think I just felt like I had a lot growing up. We were very blessed and my mom was always in junior league and volunteering on a smaller scale, right? So we were from the Bay Area. And so she was always doing something and always helping locally, and my mom was such a great example. And I think you're probably a little bit like this, where she was out helping others, but doing good. And I watched her do it. She wasn't just always in the home. And she was the type that needed to get out just like I am as well. And so she really taught me this, like, you can be an incredible mom going out and doing things out in your community and not home 100% of the time. And that's great too. We had a lot of help growing up and it was nothing but like a beautiful village that made my mom happier, my life better. And so I think sometimes when people are like, oh, you get help, you get this, I'm like, and I benefited. That's how my life was. And it was so full and great. And my mom was happier. My mom went on her runs every morning. My mom was out in the community. She, did her stuff, was with her girlfriends, and she was a happy mom, which in turn made me a happier child. So anyways, I think I watched that growing up. And then slowly we had some successful business outcomes. And I was in a spin class and we were waiting for I don't know, some kind of sell of a company or something like that. And those things take so much longer than you think. And so you think there's going to be this, like, we've made it, like, this big, and I was sitting and my husband sent me a text and said, transaction completed. And I sat there and I bawled my eyes out. I bawled, and it felt so heavy. And I think it was the first time that I thought, where much is given, much is required. And I thought, man, this is a heavy responsibility, and I felt it. And so I called Jeremy and I said, we're picking the kids up from school and we're going down to the teen shelter. And we bought dinner and we went to the teen shelter, and I thought, this is a path. Like, this is our path, because we're not going to buy a car. And we're not gonna, I hate stuff. Like, I'm just not a thing person. I'm like, don't bring anything into my house. I don't even go to Target, because I'm like, I don't want to bring anything into here. I don't want to buy. I don't want to consume. I want to give. And so that was kind of this path, probably less traveled, but it was definitely our path, and has become our path every chance we get. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it's hard with, probably, as you know, with kids, when you don't want them to feel entitled and you want them to be a part of your giving. And
you want it to come from here, though, versus like force, because I don't ever want them to feel, oh, I had to do that. It was, it's just this fine line of at our house, we have to donate or we have to contribute time, which I prefer somewhere, but it has to be what makes you excited. So if you want to help with the animals, then we'll do the animals. If you want to do the food shelter, we'll do the food shelter. Yes. But everybody kind of has a vote on where they want to participate. I love that. Participation's not the option, but where the participation happens.
I love that. Well, and philanthropy is not about money, right? It's about using your resources and talents in whatever way that you can benefit others. And so I think some people think of philanthropy as like, you do, like, as an old woman, like writing a check behind and I'm like, I want to sit on apartment floors. I want my kids to sit in car rides with our refugee families that we work with and be like stunned by the stories they're hearing. I want them to hear hard. I want them to hear heartbreak. I want them to wonder how our friend, is doing, like, just really have it become part of our family culture. And so I think once you start doing it, it actually becomes incredible. And you realize, like, you couldn't do it any other way. But I do remember also when my kids started being in school a little bit more, it was during Christmas, and I was like, I was in this big van, like, there's always big vans involved somehow. I was in this big van and I had like 1,000 food bags I was bringing to different schools. And I stopped and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this, like, I was tired and it was cold and I was like, I had to go pick up what am I doing? And do you know what my answer was? I can't throw one more girlfriend lunch.
Yeah, right.
And like, that was my answer. Yes. So your answer doesn't have to be like, I was called of God to like save the children. It's like, I just can't throw another lunch and make another flower arrangement. Like, that was my answer, but that was an okay answer.
Right.
I can't go do the PTA one more time. Like, I need to go help some kids that maybe don't have a PTA. Like, you don't know what that is, but I laughed at myself and I thought, that's as good as answer as any.
It is. Yeah. It is. And like, on the journey of it. So I did junior league, right? Yeah, I lived in Michigan. I did junior league, but we helped at an orphanage. And then I was over involved. Like, I just could not separate myself. And I was in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. And then I started this adoption process because this child wasn't going to be adopted. And finally at the 11th hour was adopted. And I realized I can't be in that environment, because I don't have the strength right now to separate myself, and I just want to take them all home and I'll make it work, and don't you worry. Yeah. And so then learning that I can do things in other arenas that are just as impactful, but I'm better at my boundary.
Yes.
But you learn, and you learn, and you're just like, okay, this is me or this isn't me. And none of it's wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just figuring it out. Mm-hmm.
And I have a sister who has 3 little kids, and I was telling her about, I'm doing the sister PTA program. So I'm finding schools that don't have a PTA, with a school that's oversubscribed with too many moms. And she's like, I just want to be in my PTA. And I was like, and you should. She's like, she has 3 little kids. It's her season of life where she's like, all I can do is this. All I can do is my home and love my kids. And barely I'm doing that. And I was like, good for you. That is what your bandwidth allows. But knowing, how much, what's so interesting is I think that everyone's plate is like mine. Like, I can do this much. I'm throwing big arms. I just somehow have a big bandwidth. I can but some people's plates are a little bit smaller, and that's about all they can do. And so, and seasons of life, are so different. And so when you travel, you might have little kids and that's not possible right now. But even looking up, even saying, what would I do if I could go serve with my kids? Even getting in the habit of like, I'll even find out about, we're in Mexico City. What's going on in Mexico City with poverty? Even just researching and understanding a little bit about that town that you're in. Maybe that's all you can do for right now. And that's awesome. That's starting a conversation and digging a little bit deeper.
Yep. No, I agree. And so now you're involved with Traeger with the culture, right? Did I read this?
Well, a little bit. So part of, yes, a little bit and a little bit not. So Traeger is like a 35-year-old brand out of the Pacific Northwest that we moved here. We bought about 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay.
And then it had a toxic culture. It was terrible. So we pretty much let everybody go and then started hiring here in Utah. And so that's been, I don't know, probably about the last 6 or 7 years. So Jeremy really is, I would say, an expert in culture and building culture and making sure that who he's hiring is the right cultural fit. But we were driving down the canyon. We hike every Sunday. So you would appreciate that. They're probably don't look like your hikes.
It's perfect.
But it's like the one forced family fun thing that we do. Like, this is forced. We don't care what you say. We're hiking until you're 18 and you're no longer here. And we were driving down the canyon and we were talking about culture, and Jeremy was just obsessed with culture at the time because he was really trying to build this new culture, right? And so we're driving down the canyon. He's like, do you know what? You're the chief culture officer of our home. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, crap, you're right. Like, I totally am. And you realize from this morning to, getting my kids ready to the night to like the mom is often the chief culture officer of the home. So we set the tone, we set the stress level, we set the, we are the mood, we are all of it, whether we like it or not. By default, we create the culture in our home. And it is daunting, right? To think that and know that. And I'm like, gosh, I fail 5 times out of 10. But even just that knowledge of that, and sometimes that helps me just close my mouth. Sometimes that helps me.
So here's a line we use in our household. Mom, what would this look like if you underreacted? Oh. I'm like, and they're allowed to say that. Like, that's a permissible thing because it allows us to pause in the moment and be like, really? Does this need this level of emotion or this level of whatever? So what is this under, like, it's just fun.
I love that. But it's like, it's so true. And as I started learning that and watching that in my home, at least it would stop me from blowing up. Or sometimes I find that I would engage when I didn't need to, like you just said, like I didn't need to engage. I lost my voice a month ago and try this exercise out. It was a Sunday and I literally couldn't talk. I was so hoarse and I had a speaking engagement the next day. So I had to just be so quiet. What I was opening my mouth to say 9 times out of 10 did not need to be said. It didn't matter. Like, it was not providing any value, any love, any good energy to the home. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so stunning to me that I need to be more careful with my words, because when you're just talking at your kids all day, they stop listening. And I'm definitely in that point.
Yeah. Well, when you have 6 or 7, like we do.
Yes, I know. We're doing our best. Yeah. And I give myself grace, and motherhood is hard for me. It's really, really hard. And I know that. And so I just do my best every day and give myself grace. And
yes, I know. I love business because you have these control and these defined things and goals, and you have ways to get them. And at home, I feel like I am running like open range with just fences. I'm like, I have to allow you to have this full experience so you can incorporate it. But oh man, really, in my living room?
Go down to my basement right now. It is a fort. I actually walked down this morning early, 5:30 to go to my workout. And I was like, again, and another fort. And then the next thought was, how cool. Yeah. That they were down building a fort for 2 hours while I napped yesterday. How cool that my kids, are being creative and not behind a computer so I tried to switch that narrative in my head. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to let it stay. And it's hard. It's hard to let go and lose control. And definitely outside of the house, I feel a lot better about myself than I do in.
It's just easier. Yeah. I feel like those lines.
It's so much easier.
It's easier to define ourselves.
Yeah.
But here's another thing that I really admire about you. You do the philanthropy, you do motherhood, and you do you. You have this fitness piece that is you. So share like how you do that, incorporate that, and stay you.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I often say that sometimes, you know, you have so many kids, I have so many kids. Literally, if you have one kid, you can put on this mom hat and never take it off. And I think that's detrimental to ourselves as women and as friends and as mothers and daughters and wives. And so I always say, like, the mom hat's on, but then the Kristen hat is very close by. I can quickly and easily go to that Kristen, whether it's with my husband or with my friends or in the community, where I think sometimes we kind of get bogged down and pigeonholed sometimes as moms as like, we're just mom and we're kind of victims and, you know, we're not getting the support we need and the husband's late again. And it can kind of be, but it's like, if you can easily switch back to this, like me, and I make sure that my life is full. My husband has had a very successful career and lots of accolades and awards. And I remember one day being like, it's all about you. I just keep having these kids. And I still was like out with friends. Like I still had a full life, but I thought no one, and I stopped myself and I was like, I do not, okay. So I remember my husband getting all the accolades, especially when he was running Skull Candy up in Park City and getting a lot of attention and saying like, it's always all about you. And then I stopped myself and I thought, I am the only one that's watching out for me. If I ask for help, if I ask him for that, like he's happy to do it. He can't read my mind. He doesn't know what I want. And so
we wish they could.
We wish they could, but they can't. And so I tell women this all the time. I'm like, you are your best and only advocate. You want roses for Valentine's Day or you don't, you are the one. Like I paid and bought for my old Mother's Day cake because I wanted this special olive oil cake that I wanted. You know, like I am the only one watching out for me, making sure that my needs are met, that I have what I need to be the best mom, the best wife, the best woman that I can. So exercise has been a really, really fun one. I have this YouTube channel. I'm like total amateur hour, but it's great. My kids are like yelling in the back and I'm like stopping and panting because it's so hard, but they're just like free at home workouts for the mom that has a toddler or needs to do something in 15 minutes before she runs to work or, you know, does it at 10 o'clock at night. And so we have fun, you know, we get sexy, we shake our hips, we dance, we cry, we laugh. We sweat our buns off. And it's kind of my gift, I think, to women to say, you have no excuse. Yeah. Like, I'm going to give you a really hard workout and it's free and you're going to get sweaty with me and we're going to do it together. And so we have, you know, over 13,000 women on there that are doing them all the time. It's really cool. But I think we need to take the power back. And instead of saying my life is out of control and everything, it's like, do you choose this every day? And if you do, tell people what you need. I need help with this. I need to go on a walk every morning. I need, you know, messages.
I don't know where help became like the 4-letter word, but because we love to give it. Like if someone asks me for help, I'm like, thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. And like the journey of learning how to ask for it for myself and just allow other people to participate. Yeah. You know, it's funny, but once you learn to ask, I never get told no.
Oh, totally.
I mean, people are so excited to be able to help and show up and do. And yeah, it's a thing.
It's a thing. And I think I watched my mom do this because we had live-in help growing up, just like a mother's helper. She actually always came from Utah or Idaho.
I have a Karen, so she
And I watched my mom own it. Like no one else had that, girl. Like just no one else did. My mom had 4 kids, which in California was a lot, and had her own hobbies and interests. And my mom owned it. Like it was just, and so I remember when I had a 3-month-old Audrey, and I was dying. Like I, didn't have kids till I was 28, and I was like, what am I doing? And I called my husband on a business trip, and I'm like, I need help. Like I am dying. I had 1 kid, right? I had 1. And I found this little grandmother in my neighborhood and I started bringing Audrey to her because I needed the break. And so I own, like, this is the mother I am, not the mother that all my friends are on my street because none of them got help, I'll tell you, and they never would have. But I'm like, I need help. I need to get out of the house. This is what, and I still do that to this day. And so I own who I am, the kind of mother I am, because I know in the end I win by getting what I need. And obviously that's not always practical. But this was a perfect example of a grandma down the street, didn't even want to be paid. It was such a win for her. She loved my sweet daughter. They're still, best friends to this day. And so building this village of people to help and then owning like, this is who I am.
Well, taking up space. Like I'm unapologetically me.
Yeah.
And here's what that involves.
Yeah.
You get the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's every human alive.
Yep.
Like we're not unique.
Right. But so many women have a hard time with that and shoulds and, and
I get asked questions like, well, are you worried that the kids like Karen more than you? I hope they do some days. like I'm okay with that, right? Totally. And the more people that love on my little humans, the better that everybody is.
That's exactly right. I've had so many of our cute nannies come back. I just had one text me, hey, I'm going to stay with you for a wedding I'm coming to. And I'm like, what a gift all of these women are. And I definitely can't do it alone. And I would be a disaster alone. Like I would. I'd be a horrible wife. I'd be resentful of anything that he did. So it's so much better for everyone. And sometimes that's switching babysitting with another couple. Sometimes like it looks different. It doesn't always have to be paid help, but getting your needs met and just investing in yourself. I think sometimes like, I can pay for all of this, but I don't want to pay for a little bit of babysitting. To me, investing in yourself and making sure that your mental health is as best as it can be is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So on your journey, if you could go back to your 12-year-old self, like what would you say?
I get asked this, I've been asked this often. Okay. And I always say, I am so glad I've gone through everything I've gone through. I wouldn't want to change anything because my hardest times were when I definitely grew the most. I think had I, like everything's going to turn out and it's not the end, right? I feel humbled knowing that life is actually really good right now, but I don't know what tomorrow brings. And with a family of 8, that's a lot of humans. And I remember my dad saying, I know the bubble's going to burst, because we had a great life growing up. And he said, I know the bubble's going to burst one day. I just don't know like when it's coming or what it's going to be. And they've had, we've had things in our family. And I thought, I know the bubble's going to burst one day. I know hard things are going to come, but if I'm already humbled, if I'm prepared for that, then I think I'll be okay. So 12-year-old self, I think I wouldn't want to know anything because I'd want to go through that hard. And I mean, even things that my husband and I went through dating, which were really hard to me, it made us stronger. And things that I kind of messed up, like, I think I'll be a better mom because of that, So, I don't know, but I love talking to 12-year-old girls now and being like,
it's perfect. Yeah, I promise you, it's all going to be just perfect.
I think watching, like, especially with like religion and spirituality, I teach my kids a lot differently than I was raised. So I think it almost would be that way a little bit more, like you're loved no matter what, you're enough no matter what. So I would almost say, like, spiritually and religiously, I would probably tell my 12-year-old self something, but not much more. Cause I'd say, like, you actually have to go through it all. Right. You actually need to
know that it's all for you.
It's
like,
all
just
for
experience
you.
It. It's for you. The goods, the bads, all of it. I mean, it's all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, okay. So for our listeners that are living all over the globe, actually, what's the first step to be able to contribute to their community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I love to do is find out, I'd call it sticky service. Like, find out what you're interested in. Do you care about animals? Like, your kids is a perfect example. If I was like, no, you have to care about menstruation. Some of your kids, boys, no thanks. Like, I don't really want to do that. And so if you're like, no, this is what you have to care about and give to and give of your time and talents, they're going to be like, it's not going to stick. And so maybe they love animals. Maybe, I always say, don't go and try to save the whales if you don't care about whales. If you care about refugees or single moms or foster kids, go look in your community, start just even following people on Instagram. They're going to constantly be giving you ways to give back for their organization. Sign up just for newsletters. Like, it could be a journey of 10 years, but what if in 10 years you knew exactly what you cared about, what you wanted to hone in, where you wanted to really spend your time and energy? Like, it doesn't have to be a quick thing. The other thing is, over the holidays, right? We're always all serving and giving back in different arenas. But in the spring and the fall and the summer, those kids, those people, those organizations are in even more need of help. So follow up with those that you give back to over the holidays and say, hey, it's March. What do you guys need now? What's going on in July when I tell you no one's giving back or even thinking about it? And so it's really, the magic is in showing up again, following up and seeing what you can do. If it's something like, let's say, period poverty, for example, you could look up your town, period poverty or menstrual equity or anything like that. And Google is just an incredible resource, even for giving back in your community. If you care about foster care agencies in, wherever you live, that will, and then start, looking at their websites, and then you really will start getting in the flow, and then you'll be amazed at how much you show up to one thing, and then you get told about the next thing. And then you're like, this is really my jam. Or you're like, this isn't speaking to me. And guess what? That is just as important as finding something that you love.
Like, I love doing the 5Ks or the races.
Yeah.
Right. I love showing up. I love people pushing or encouraging each other, and when they're for a cause, like, that's my jam.
Exactly.
Right. And that took me a while to realize, like, oh, I could connect the two.
Yes.
And I think that's something I actually learned from you on one of the posts on Instagram of how you get sick of the lunches with your friends, but then you take your friends to go do something where you're giving back in the community, right? Yeah. And so for me, it was always, if you want to hang out, I don't want to eat. Like, I don't want to go sit at a place in 2 hours of eating. Yeah. So let's go walk, or let's go do something together. Yeah. And it's a way to, I don't know, they call it bunching habits nowadays.
Oh, I love that. And using your megaphone or your influence or your circle of friends to do good, so it's like, hey guys, we're adopting a school. Who wants to help? Everybody actually wants to help. Yeah. And so I always say, like, a lot of people want service handed them on a silver platter. Like, here's your family, here's what you need. But if that's a way to get them started, that's okay. And so you can then bring service opportunities to friends, to groups, to neighborhoods, and then they start getting involved, and it really spreads it so that you're not the only one talking about it, but then other people start, becoming excited about whatever it is. And then I love when people find their own things that are something that I would never do. So for instance, we were working at a school, and I was so focused on the students. And my friend's like, what about the teachers? It was it's a school, rough kids, it's a really, really, and I thought, these teachers, my mind never went. So thank goodness I had brought friends in to help, because they looked at it from a different perspective. And then we were able to really love on the teachers. And I thought, thank goodness all of our minds work differently. And then when we come in together, we can help in such different ways, and we're all going to be good. Some things I would never want to help with, and it just doesn't resonate with me. Thank goodness, right? Because then it really matters to other people. And so it's fun to find something that's important to you and your family, and you keep coming back to, because a one-time project is great, but when you come back again and again is where it really changes you. And I think that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking to be changed.
Yes, we want it to inspire us. Yeah. And by us showing up, we inspire them, and it just completes the circle, and it becomes the win-win and all of it. So yeah. I think everybody's going to listen to this episode, and they're going to go donate their time. And I'm so excited.
Yay.
Make it more possible.
Yay. Well, good. Well, collaboration and women using their voices can change the world. I mean, it can change our state, it can change your neighborhood, and we need women's voices in a really big way right now. So.
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, I remember my mom used to have what we call stitch and bitch, right? And things like that. We don't have that. It's not as easy to do that kind of stuff anymore, right? So making sure we get the sisterhood of making things happen.
Yes, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Fun. Thank you.
Thank you.